The Toronto Blue Jays will return to Canada with a chance to win the World Series in Game 6 as they lead 3-2. I am Dan, that's Kyle, and we're with CJ Nitkowski. CJ, this game will be known for two things. The fact that it was over within the first three pitches of the game because of Mr. Trey Yesavage.
Yeah, I'm not sure we knew that at the time. It was certainly nice to see a couple of home runs early, but what a night it was for Trey Savage. We joked about it, right? Everyone seemed like it was going to be the biggest moment of his life, right? Each of those starts, this one was the biggest one. Now I wonder if he'll ever be in a bigger situation and deliver in a bigger way, which is wild to say for a guy who has not even played a full year in the big leagues yet. It's hard to imagine how it gets any bigger than this, right? Setting a rookie record for the most strikeouts in a World Series game. Don Newcomb was the last one to do it in 1949. He had 11. Savage had 12. He was excellent tonight. The adjustments that we were looking for, especially on the split, were made. He was extremely confident, which he has been the entire time when at these Dodgers guys and making them look a little bit old and tired since that 18-inning game.
CJ, yeah, he struck out every single Dodger in the starting lineup at least once. He was spotting his pitches much better than in his previous outing. How much of this performance can be chalked up, and I mean this in a positive way, just to the ignorance of youth and just being able to go out there and just do his damn thing, you know?
Yeah, he hasn't had the failure yet that has made him second-guess himself at all, right? There certainly is something to that. There is value in failure. We talk about it all the time, but not right now. You don't want to do it, certainly, in the World Series. So I think the adjustments are the big ones, right? Yeah, I agree with you. There's some youthful ignorance there that's always kind of a good thing to be able to have, right? There's a balance in there somewhere. But he is also aware of kind of how Game 1 went. What do I have to do differently? Again, it hasn't been very many starts in his career, but far and away the lowest four-seam fastball usage that he has had in any game. And the reason that is because the split was really good. You know, he didn't have it last time, didn't have a feel for it. The slider seems like it's his most consistent pitch so far in his brief career, where if something's not there, the slider seems like it always will be. But the fact that the split was back and he made the adjustments that he needed to make made all the difference in the world. And he was as confident as could be. He didn't care that he was at Dodger Stadium. He didn't care that there were three Hall of Famers at the top of the lineup in front of that really big crowd. We had wondered about that. Remember, we talked about should it have been Gausman in Game 1 so he could pitch Game 5. It has all worked out so far, and the Jays are in a really good spot. But Trey Savage, watching him, we'll talk about the physical part, the good stuff, how he carries himself, but the ability to adjust already at such a young age and look unfazed has probably been the most impressive part at this point.
He made one mistake, and he didn't make that mistake again. It was the pitch that it was a fastball, I think, that was poorly placed.
Yeah, a mislocation, right? He's trying to go away. He misses up and in. Kike Hernandez, they were talking about it on the Fox broadcast, have been working on trying to stay on the ball more, keeping his shoulder turned in, and he was able to get to that. And he's a guy that is, a respectable player during the regular season, but he turns into Superman in the postseason. And he knew it when he hit it, and Trey Savage knew it when he hit it. It was a big home run. There was a lot of action early, but he shut him down after that. And, listen, it's going to happen. You're going to miss some spots here and there. I can't blame him for that. There's, if that's the only thing that went wrong today, it ended up being a really good day.
Yeah.
And by going so deep in the game, now the Blue Jays will be going into this weekend with a completely fresh set of arms, including a likely potential appearance from Bieber if needed Saturday night.
Yeah, Bieber, and even for Chris Bassett, I know he's not in the rotation, but just thinking about what he has done so far in the bullpen to have him rested, not pitching tonight, and obviously the day off tomorrow, I think he could end up being a really big factor depending on what kind of situation the Jays are in late in that game for sure. But you're absolutely right. I mean, this is when we talk about good bullpens, what makes them good is that your starters keep you in a good place by not asking you to do too much. The pitch count today was, 104, I think, for Savage. They pushed a little bit on him. Blake Snell threw 116. That's just kind of a signal of where the Dodger bullpen is right now. They'd rather do that with him than go into their bullpen, even though he was struggling a little bit. But absolutely, the pen is in a good place. This team is in a really good place. They're flying high with confidence right now, and I cannot wait for Friday to get here.
It's the next man up mentality. And Davis Schneider was saying, I have to do something. And people were wondering, him in the leadoff spot without Springer. I don't know if this is going to work. Well, those questions didn't last long. First pitch of the game, Davis Schneider makes his mark.
Yeah, and it takes the air out of the stadium in that moment, right? We've seen Blake Snell dominate how good he can be. But again, we talked about the adjustments for Yesavage. You kind of knew, right? It had to be the split. You got to get it figured out. What do we want to see or need? What you need to see if you're a Dodger fan from Blake Snell was his fastball wasn't great last time. And so if you're sitting on the other side and you're game planning and you're trying to stay ahead of the curve, part of what you're talking about is what do we think he's going to do differently? Just like, again, we saw fastball usage drop considerably for Yesavage tonight because the split was right. If you're sitting there preparing for the Blue Jays, you're thinking he is probably thinking, how am I going to get my fastball right? Be ready for the fastball and don't miss it. And it could be the very first pitch of the game. David Schneider went in with a really good game plan. He got a pitch that he could handle, and he set the tone for what was the rest of the game.
CJ, break that down for us. So when David Schneider would be planning to face Snell, how many first batter at bats would they go back to and say, okay, he threw the fastball 98% of the time? Are they going that detailed and that far back to lower the percentage of what are the odds at that pitch he's going to throw?
Sure, they do it all the time. And, thinking about a guy like Snell, who's not afraid to use those 3 off-speed pitches at any moment, we've seen it throughout the postseason where it's not necessarily going to be a first pitch fastball to start the game. The game has changed dramatically in that regard. But I do think you can look at Snell facing righties. What are the tendencies have been? I think a lot you can look again into the last start and get a little bit of a better feel. Nothing is 100% usually in this game, but at the same time, you start to pick your spots and you feel like there's a high percentage of something, and no doubt he went in thinking that. You make a decision. I think he's going to try to get a first pitch strike because his command wasn't great. I'm not letting it go by. I will be ready for it. I'm going to get the head out. So there was certainly data involved. There's also some instinct involved. And then the comfort level, right? There are some guys that get into that leadoff spot that don't like swinging at the first pitch. They want to see one. They want to see what the fastball looks like. They want to acquire some data that they can also share with their teammates and the data that they pick up by what they're seeing in an at-bat. But we don't ask leadoff hitters to do that anymore. If you see a pitch you like, go ahead and go after it. When you have big-time power type of guys like Ronald Acuna Jr. when he is leading off, when George Springer is leading off, Shohei Ohtani, they're not trying to work the count, right? This is not the Kenny Lofton days where a guy's trying to get on base so he can steal a bag. They'll go ahead and jump on one if they like it. And I think Schneider had a plan. Clearly he did. And he saw what he liked coming out of the hand of Blake Snell. And again, just completely changed the game from pitch number 1.
CJ, Vladimir Guerrero did look at the first pitch. I don't remember if he swung at it, but on the third pitch of the game and the second pitch of his at-bat, he also went deep. And the Canadian broadcast up here pointed out that was his hardest swing of the entire season. What does it say about his level of focus, flow state, and comfort right now that his hardest swing of the season's in Game 5 of the World Series?
Yeah, he's young, he's strong, he's comfortable. There had to be something, I think, also to do with, quite honestly, David Schneider's at bat. Listen, it's already intense there. The energy's already really good, but it kind of brings you to another level, right? When a guy kicks it off and you're like, yeah, here we go. I want to get in on this. And not that he didn't have that game plan. If Schneider had struck out, he'd still be going up there with the same game plan, but there is something to it. When we talk about hitting being contagious in our game, there's zero data and science to back it up. But there is, as you mentioned, kind of the flow that comes along with any athletic contest, but certainly in baseball when you're trying to connect the lineup and you see what he did and you got a pitch that you can handle, he was ready to do the same. And he smoked that ball. I mean, he hit that ball way harder than David Schneider hit his. So, again, it was a great start. Guys that had good game plans, but probably more importantly, on the flip side of it, it was a couple of fastballs that just caught the heart of the plate. And again, fastball command was a problem. And they scared Blake Snell. I mean, he didn't throw a fastball, I think, for another 20-something pitches after that. Like he threw a couple, they hit him over the fence. He's like, all right, not tonight. I got to go to something else. Like he changed his game plan immediately based on what those two guys did.
It must be terrifying for the Dodgers. The only game in which the Jays haven't had a multiple run inning is the first game of the series, or sorry, the second game of the series, the Yamamoto game, where the Jays only scored 1 run. And the thing that's in common with all those multiple run innings are that's when the pen got put into play for the Dodgers.
Yeah, and it was a mess tonight, as we saw, and this is their concern. Again, they're pushing their starters harder because right now for Dave Roberts, there's not a lot of confidence in that bullpen, especially if you're down, right? It's one thing if you have 1 or 2 guys you can count on, and again, I know they're a little bit of a mess right now, but when you're down in a series and you're down in that game in particular, you start thinking about, am I going to my A arms or am I going to my secondary arms to try to keep us in this game? Well, a couple of the guys that we would consider the secondary arms weren't even on the roster for every round of this postseason so far, including the kid Enriquez who we saw tonight. Big arm, 102 miles an hour at times with that fastball. but he hasn't been a go-to guy. And the lack of depth, while they have it on the starting side, they just don't have it in the bullpen right now. And you're absolutely right. The idea of getting to the pen, that has not changed. I know the 18-inning game might have changed our mind a little bit on how much of a winning game plan that could be, but it was one game. And the way that they were able to bounce back and attack this bullpen now the last couple is concerning for the Dodgers, because what do you do now? I mean, you're down. You have to win each of these next 2 games, which tells me they're not going to let a starter get in trouble, but you're not in a rush to get into your bullpen either. So it is really problematic. The 7th inning in particular, I think I mentioned this the other day. We were talking about Clayton Kershaw. 7th inning for a while during his career was not good in the postseason because the bullpen was weak. Well, I think that was like 2016, 17, and it feels the same right now. The Dodgers last year in their 16 games let up 1 run in the 7th inning. I believe they're up to 10 now in this postseason in the 7th inning. That's the time, right? The changeover from your starter to your bullpen has been hugely problematic.
CJ, I thought Addison Barger had one of his best games as a Blue Jay, certainly in the playoffs tonight. As far as completeness goes, he reached base against Blake Snell 3 times. He had the diving catch off Ohtani. And for a guy that was replaced for running earlier in the series, he ran the bases. He ran the bases very well tonight.
Couple of things for him, that not that he would say this to John Schneider, but he's got to be thinking a little bit. One, never pinch run for me again in a big spot. But probably more importantly, don't sit me against lefties either.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, he deserves to be in there. To have good at-bats against like Blake Snell was a really tough left-on-left matchup, because you're seeing, again, 3 different pitches. You're seeing high velocity. He's not afraid to throw his changeup left-on-left, which you don't get a lot of necessarily in our game. He spins the ball well with 2 different breaking balls. He can be really difficult left-on-left, but there's been good at-bats there. This kid had a breakout season. I think this is also one of these kind of postseasons, though, too, for Addison Barger that could leapfrog him to another level, where you're never thinking about, do we need to have a right-hander platoon option potentially for him? No, he's proving to you that he can hit some of the best lefties in the game in the biggest moments. It's fun to watch. He's really turned into a very exciting player. He's going to alter, I think, the way you look at your offseason and kind of your plans there. And as far as what needs you may have with Bo very likely ending up somewhere else, we'll see. And I don't want to talk about that too early, but as far as just what it means is moving guys around and looking at Addison Barger as a guy who should be in the lineup 155 games a year.
Here's maybe the most surprising thing, or maybe it's not surprising for Jays fans, is that I think it's being proven in real time that the Toronto Blue Jays are not bad for TV numbers. And not bad like they were always said they're a poison, because this is a small sample size. I was just in Miami for 2 days for work, and people were talking about the series. They didn't know where we were from. They're like, hey, you guys see that game last night? This is a fun series. Social media, I'm seeing it. People are watching. Is that what you're seeing? And that's what you're hearing? Is that what's happening down across the United States, CJ?
There's a lot of people here in the U.S. that are pulling for the Blue Jays, right? Because you have this juggernaut of the Los Angeles Dodgers who have spent all that money. And if you're not a Dodger fan, nobody wants to see the team with the most money that's out there spending it left and right win. Then you also have a very likable team in the Toronto Blue Jays with guys like George Spring. I know he gets the boos in L.A. for some of the history, but he's a very likable guy. Vladdy is as well. You go up and down the lineup. There's some really good guys to watch, and they're easy to root for. And even to see Max Scherzer trying to turn back the clock, it's a fun storyline. To see a rookie who was in college last year, it's a fun storyline. So that makes them a good team. I saw some of the rating stuff that was out there. The only downside, and it's not even for baseball, it's just for our former employers, and that's in Fox, right? Just because they don't get the Canadian rating, so it's a loss for them.
How are their ratings been? Pretty good?
Yeah, so I saw Michael. Remember Michael, who does the ratings over there?
Yep.
Michael, is it Mulvihill, right? To say his name right, his last name. So I did see games 1 and 2, where we're up around 12 or 13 million in the States, kind of on all 4 platforms for Fox. Canada was at like 7 million on the obviously for Sportsnet, but then also the French television network that covers a TVA that covers, I believe, in French in Canada, but
your
combined 7
as ours.
Oh, I see. I figured you guys would know that. I looked
Parlez-vous français?
But so they were, I think they were around 7 million, and then in Japan, they were also around 10 million. So think about it, Japan's got 124 million people, I think, somewhere in there, but they're still drawing really, really well. And we haven't seen the numbers for the Ohtani start. That's going to be even higher. These games are starting at 9 o'clock in the morning over there, but those numbers have been really good. The overall combination of numbers have been excellent.
Okay,
it's just a matter of, I think, for Fox, because again they don't get that rating, it ends up being somewhat of a financial loss for them, or at least not as big of a winner as it can be. But for baseball, no, for baseball it's been excellent. And I think again you got a lot of people down here that are pulling for the Jays, because I love the idea of not seeing a back-to-back winner again, right? We haven't seen it since the Yankees. It's a good message for our sport, right? As much as there's all the salary cap and the big spending conversation is going to happen this winter and unfortunately next winter as we get closer to a lockout, the idea that you can say we haven't had a repeat winner in 25 years, I think is a good thing for baseball.
We've had the conversation an awful lot about how John Schneider turns this team over between wins and between losses. Let's switch teams for a second here. The Dodgers' top 4 hitters were 1 for 15 tonight. How does Roberts turn this team around heading back to Toronto? What's the game plan there?
Yeah, so the change today in the lineup, I was a little bit surprised by. So they put Will Smith in the 2 spot. Okay, I got that. But then they only moved Mookie down 1. Mookie Betts, unfortunately, is struggling right now. And quite honestly, all the guys are. They're trying to figure it out, especially since, that 18-inning game. You look at kind of those big 3. They have been scuffling. I was a little bit surprised that Mookie did not get pushed down further. Not worried about his confidence. He's mentally a really solid guy. He's just not performing right now. But I thought I would have put him below Freddie Freeman to then be able to go right, left. I didn't mind the idea at all of putting Will Smith in the 2 spot, but they've already started doing that, right? The fact that we did not see Andy Pages out there in center field, we kind of had wondered about that. Would that be coming sooner than later? I mean, I've been talking about that since game 3. We haven't seen it now since game 5. And he had a good year and he's a good player, but he was struggling here in the postseason. Some of that has to do with also that Tommy Evans got that bad ankle, so he can't really play center for a full game. He'd been out there, but you really don't want to force him to be out there. You like to avoid it if you can. So they put Alex Call in left field, trying to shake things up a little bit. They'll likely continue to do that, I would imagine. But for Dave Roberts right now, he's looking for answers, and it's tough to change it in one day and expect that it's going to be better and you're going to see a difference right away. I think if anything, he probably should stick with the lineup that he put out there tonight, because if you're changing it again for Game 6, that actually could help panic set in, and that's not what you want.
People, if the Blue Jays do win this series, will look back on that 18-inning game, and if they ever talk to any of the current Dodgers, they will say, you guys couldn't beat the Buffalo Bisons for half a game and a bunch of relievers, and you guys had your entire lineup intact. You couldn't beat the Bisons. That's
and
what
then their
was.
starter, and then their starter in the next game.
And remember, think about that too. And I was doing radio this week. I thought it was a really good point that was brought up. Is that Will Smith caught all 18 innings of that game. Alejandro Kirk did not.
Yeah.
And even though it was not a game that went the way you wanted it to go, if you're a Blue Jay fan, whether it was a smart move or whether it was foreshadowing or just felt like it needed to be made at the time. Alejandro Kirk is 1 for 8, and so was Will Smith since then. But what's going on behind the plate? Right, 18 innings. Like the guy I was working with on radio that day, Chris Jimenez, former big league catcher, and he's like, "Dude, 18. Like, you feel like you need 2 days off after trying to catch 18, especially in a high intensity environment like that." Well, it was 0 days off for Will Smith after catching 18. And I'm not saying he's done a bad job behind the plate, but there is no way he is not tired. There's no way he's not fatigued. It hasn't stopped. At least in the case of Kirk, he didn't have to play that entire game. Keep the legs a little bit fresher. You can think about how sharp you have to be mentally when you're back there and you're trying to block pitches. And Will Smith had some work to do tonight in blocking pitches, and some that got away, and that one that wasn't even close that I think was originally ruled a pass ball. I think they changed it. But it was a tough pitch to get to. He's got to be feeling pretty beat up right now, and he may be looking forward to the off day more than anybody.
You could say that about all the Jays that got taken out of the game. They got to rest for all that time while all the Dodgers kept playing.
Yeah. Hey, what'd you make of George Springer, looking like he was going to pinch run?
Well,
I was like, what's going on here? It looked like he was going to pinch run for Bo Bichette. I was like, all right. I'm like, and I'm listening to them like we're saying, well, we talked to John Schneider and he made it seem like the longer he sits, maybe it's not good for him. I'm like, to do some sprints after the game. I don't want to put him in that situation and take that chance of making it worse.
He had the jacket on. I'm like, are we going to see the jacket come back just like pitchers used to wear out there?
What you think of my suggestion that they should have pinch hit Clayton Kershaw in that last inning just so they could get a little send off for his last game?
Oh yeah,
he'll never be at Dodger Stadium again. Of course, they can't do that.
No.
No, I would have enjoyed watching it.
Okay, so CJ, the Blue Jays will see Yamamoto for the second time in the series after his incredible Game 2 start. He was nothing but electric. Is the game plan here just to simply figure out a way to see more pitches and get him out of there?
If you can, and you'd love to get to the bullpen, it's just difficult to do if you're hitting your spots. I do wonder for him because he was so dominant. You talk about sometimes being proactive and trying to stay ahead of what maybe the Jays are anticipating or what their game plan might be. Does he mix things up any differently? We won't know until the game is over. Obviously, this is a really important one for him. The thing about him also, we talked about the 18-inning game. Remember, he warmed up. Like, that had to be a little bit disconcerting. Remember, these guys, when they come over from Japan, are as orientated when it comes to their pregame and their preparation as any group of baseball players have ever been around. And the strength for them is usually pitching once a week every 7 days, right? It's always when you see guys come over. I think Yamamoto coming into the postseason did not pitch on regular rest ever. And then they asked him to, and now he's done it a couple of times, and he's been excellent. You do wonder if that's going to catch up to him at some point. And the reason that is Japan, because you always have every Monday off, and a lot of times you have a 6-man rotation. It's the same thing with Shohei Ohtani, and it's almost like you're pitching the same day every week. It could be like the Tuesday pitcher because you're pitching once every 7 days. You get over here to the States, it's a lot harder to do. But they've done a good job trying to keep him as fresh as possible. It is paying off dividends right now in the postseason. But again, I do wonder if that catches up to him at some point, especially since he did warm up at least. And it sounded like he might have been going in for the 19th inning, listening to some of Dave Roberts' comments after. So he had to get somewhat close. He had to have some adrenaline, and that's not something he's ever experienced before. Maybe that has a negative effect on him.
You played in Korea, correct?
I played in both. Yeah,
You
2
played
years
in
in
both.
Japan, 2 years in Korea. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, loved it. Fun.
CJ, thank you for this.
All right. Maybe the next one will be the last one.
Oh,
Maybe.
boy. I can't wait. Thanks, Fred.
All right. See you guys.
That's CJ Nitkowski. Again, he knows of what he speaks as he played in Asia, in Japan, and Korea.
Pretty much covers the whole circuit, does it not?
Yeah, he played the majors. There's nowhere else to play. Well, I'm sure, yeah, you could play in winter ball in Mexico. You could play in Cuba. I don't think he ever played in Cuba.
No. I think there's an Irish baseball league. Who really knows? But it's very interesting to hear his insight about the different type of preparation methods and discipline from the international games. International games, which I have a lot of respect for. They play really good ball in South Korea, in Japan, obviously. And
The fan experience over those games looks like it's phenomenal.
Yeah, truly, right? I remember during when the world was shut down for a little while, the Korean Baseball League was the first to do the cardboard cutouts of all the like Pokemon style characters and such in the stands, and it was the only sports on TV for a while. So pretty amazing times in Toronto right now, Dan.
Yeah, and it's the one player we did not touch upon was Bichette. He is looking like he is back in his regular form. He's hitting the ball hard. He had an RBI in this game. He is looking like Bichette.
Yeah, at the plate, obviously we see how he's running right now, but I think as much of that is simply going easy on it. I'm sure he could go a little quicker, but why bother? He's seeing the ball at the plate just so well right now. He's taking it the opposite way. He's pulling it dead pull line drive like he hit off just the base of the wall last night, and he's just been such that it must have been so uplifting for this team to have him back in the lineup. And not only that, now with what's happened to Springer, they lose nothing at the plate, essentially.
Yeah. My favorite thing to watch during these games is to try figure out how annoyed the Dodgers are when the Jays just start stacking up hits and doing it with 2 outs and the inning just won't end. They're just like, well, just stop. Will you just stop doing this? It's annoying.
Sportsnet cut to a couple of shots tonight of Roberts in the dugout after some decision he had made, and I'm not even faulting him for any of the decisions he's made, but gave up a hit or a walk, just like I don't know what to do face. I don't know what to do here. Like,
well, the one reliever didn't get a single out.
No, and that's been kind of a recurring theme here. Listen, we knew their bullpen would be bad, but with the exception of Yamamoto, they haven't had a really good start either. It's they're in tough, and they're lucky they have Yamamoto going out on Friday for them to attempt to stop the bleeding. But you see a guy for a second time, and with all of those points CJ just made, he could be in for a long night.
All I know is the way Dodgers Stadium was taken out of the game after 3 pitches. It doesn't matter what happens in the first 90 pitches of that game. That Rogers Center is going to be the loudest place in North America from an hour before the opening pitch to the last pitch, and I cannot wait. And it's Halloween.
Dan, I'm not going to speculate about what could happen in the city of Toronto Friday night, but in that stadium, and we said this to close the show last night, I'm just glad that fan base gets at least one more home game this season because, quite frankly, they deserve it. They have been the sixth man as a figure of speech throughout these playoffs and down the stretch.
10th
And
man. Would you be the 10th man in baseball? Yeah, I guess the 10th.
Sure. Yeah. The extra, the 27th roster member or 28. I don't know how many you get in the postseason. Regardless, they deserve this game. The city deserves this game. And to be honest, Major League Baseball deserves what we're seeing right now here. They're being exposed to very old-fashioned style of baseball, the way the Blue Jays play it, top to bottom, getting the little things done, hitting the big flies. And now tonight, an absolutely dominant pitching performance by Trey Yesavage.
And it's also good for the players because no matter what happens, the fans want to thank them. And CJ talked about how this team is likable. And I think that's what people who don't ever see the Blue Jays are also seeing. They're like, hey, that guy looks like my neighbor. That guy could be my mechanic. They're seen as like, wow, these guys are just regular dudes and they're beating the Dodgers. So it makes them feel good about their own team. Like, oh, my Reds could do it next year if these guys are doing it. So that's why I think people are grasping onto this team. And plus, every game has been insanity. Something crazy has happened every single game. So that's another reason. Can't wait for Friday. We will have our morning tee off at 11 on Toronto Sports Rush, and then we'll be here for the post game that day as well. Happy Halloween. Well, we can say that on Friday morning. We'll see that.